All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and I appreciate your patience. We had one or two technical issues that we're working through right now to get some of our presenters joining. They were having a problem with signing on for some reason, so I handed that over to Mike Zarnowski. So, um, as you can see, this meeting is being recorded, so we'll launch as we typically do with our webinars. We will post the recording link as well as the slide decks on our coaches resource page. And Julie will do a follow-up for all the coaches and area directors, etc. So with that being said, our first slide here is just a promotional slide. It's a fundraising slide so that just people are aware. If you know anybody or if you want to share this out to any of your groups or contacts, it's a donation of vehicles, which we have had a few already that have been donated. And the proceeds for that go to help funding for the state office as well as some local programs as well. You can go to our website there with the regular link to our website, and then you can look for the choose vehicle donation section there. Or you can also reach out to Sue Jacobs, our VP of Donor Relations, with her email address there if you have any additional, or if you need information or have any questions regarding that process. So hopefully we've had a lot of webinars over the last couple of days and over the last week or two. So hopefully everyone is here for the cycling preseason webinar. This webinar is designed for coaches and others in regards to the training season and leading up to the state championships, but primarily focused on the season of cycling, not directly specifically concentrating on the state championships. So Tracy Lee is our venue director and has been for many, many years. Most of you have been around, know her. She's unable to join us tonight from a previous engagement. Chris Militello is one of the individuals that we are hoping that will be able to join us. And Julie, our sports director, is also hoping to join us as well. My name is Steve Bennett here, Senior Director of Sports and Competition at Special Olympics Maryland, and also Mike Zarnowski, our VP of Sports at the state office as well. So our typical agenda, which we do with the preseason webinars, we'll do some reminders of certifications and medical forms and paperwork and all of that kind of information. Then we'll talk about the deadlines for the season and the registration materials and everything like that, the events offered, and then some cycling specific information in regards to the qualifying events leading up to the state championship, some rule reminders, and it looks like there's Julie joining us, hopefully. And then we'll have some questions. If you do have questions, for the benefit of everyone, if you could please remain on mute. You can use the chat function to type in your question, and Mike and Julie or myself, depending on who's presenting, will be monitoring those questions. And then at the end, we'll look for any other additional questions, time pending. One of the big things we want to make sure that everyone's aware of is right now, as of today, it is targeted for October 20th for the state championships. That is a Sunday. That's different from the previous years. That would be on the same day as our Fall Sports Fest on October 19th, Saturday, but cycling has been moved at this time to Sunday, October 20th. Still doing a little bit of fine work on the finalizing the details with the venue and everything like that, but it will be at the same location as we did it last year. And again, approximately 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Was the time frame there. So more information will come for that, but we wanted to make sure everyone has this information moving forward, because that is a major difference and an important factor that we want everyone to be aware of at this time. As we always do, at the beginning of the season, no volunteers, athletes, teammates, coaches, whatever, should be participating in any practices or training programs or anything of that nature without their valid forms and everything in place and accurate and up-to-date and valid. So primarily for the athletes, that's their medical forms as well as their CDW, or their communicable disease waiver form. And then for most everybody else, it's the volunteer application, protective behaviors, and as well as their CDW forms. And then depending on the individual and the role, some additional forms and certifications that are needed, as we will talk about in just a minute. But again, very important, no exceptions to this, and make sure that you have all that in place before your first practice. In doing so, you'll work with the area leadership. Those are your people that lead your county program or your area program, and have all the records, and that's who you talk to. They run those programs with your assistance with cycling, etc. So really work with them and make sure everything's in place. If you have any questions, those should be your first go-to people, if you will. And again, we just want to make sure that everything's in place prior to the training season or the first practice. The last thing you ever want to do is have someone show up and let them know that, oh, sorry, we don't have your stuff. You need to go back home until you get this. You can't come and play or practice or train with us. So just again, make sure everything's in place well in advance of the first practice. So as we talked about the certifications and forms and everything that's needed for the different individuals, this is a slide that kind of breaks that down a little bit. So as we talked about, the athletes have their athlete medical form and their CDW, or their communicable disease waiver form. Unified teammates and general volunteers that are helping support the program would be the volunteer background check and screening, as well as their protective behaviors and their CDW. Sport volunteers have those same things with an additional certification needed with the concussion course. Assistant coaches will take the Coaching Special Olympics Athletes course. And then the head coaches, in addition to that, would also take the sport-specific training, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. One of the things that we've put in place recently is that the athlete medical form and the CDW are now combined into one form, if you will. The CDW is the last page now of the medical, so it's included in that, so that there won't be different expiration dates. It's just a nice step to have, and so we're not looking for all these different expiration dates. Similarly, the volunteer application has now also included the CDW. Similarly, there won't be one expiration date for volunteers and unified teammates and things of that nature. That the expiration for the CDW is one date, the volunteer application is another, etc. So hopefully everyone finds that valuable. And I think that's a good move that we have done here at the state office. One of the things that you may have seen if you've recently gone to SO Learn or the Learning Portal is that there's a change or an updates are being made, so it's not available. So for the protective behaviors, unified partners or teammates, coaches, volunteers that are required to take the protective behavior certification, and again, have that valid through October 20th, which is the state championship. So, and then the concussion certification as well. But the current system for the SO Learn, on the coaches resource page, we have updated that because right now the SO Learn portal is being updated and upgraded. So it's currently offline, but Mike Zarnowski from our state office has put some information on our coaches resource page, which is the last hit, where, if you will, down here with the link. And when you're going through that, you'll scroll down into the applications, certifications, and other forms section, and that will give you instructions in order to take those two courses. Mike, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, it's the links for those of you who have been with us for a while. The protective behaviors is basically reverting back to the you watch a video that we've got and then take a quiz on SurveyMonkey for the concussion. It takes you to the NFHS, National Federation for High School Sports site, and takes you through there. I would say anybody who chooses to go to the CDC concussion training, you're on your own there. People have been having great difficulty with that course on their site. The NFHS course works fine, does require you to register, but it's all free. So, and then once SO Learn is back up and running, we'll revert back to that and tested. I mean, and tested, we'll revert back to the everything going through there. There's a lot of benefits of going through SO Learn.
Yeah, and again, the anticipated relaunch or upgrading and availability for SO Learn, we're anticipating that to be August 15th. So that should be duly noted on our coaches resource page, and communication being sent out as well regarding that availability. One of the things with all of the certifications and everything that we've talked about is, again, we've talked about what's needed as a head coach. And every program should have a head coach leading into the state championships and throughout the season. If for some reason the head coach is not certified for your program, it doesn't mean that your program can't participate in the sport of cycling. But what it does mean, however, is that one of the benefits of having a head coach, if there's an issue and a protest would like to be filed, if you don't have a person who's certified as a head coach, you won't have that availability or ability to file a protest on behalf of any competitors. We will not say that no one can compete, but there are some ramifications for not having a head coach. Again, you can look at our coaches resource page at the link provided at the bottom of this slide. And you can check to see who your athletes, sport volunteers, anybody assisting with your cycling program. Check with your area leadership, but you can also check on the coaches resource page to see who has what certifications, what's becoming or will possibly expire during the season or towards the end of the season, and make sure everything's valid again through October 20th. And that part of the coaches resource page is updated pretty much every week by Dottie Rush here at the office, provided without holidays and things like that nature. But typically it's provided an update every Friday for those as certifications come in. Dottie does a great job of updating that information. Not going to read through this. We talked about the different courses and everything that individuals need to take. So again, just make sure everything's in place. Typically, everything's valid for 3 years. And again, we need those valid through October 20th. So again, beginning of the season, make sure everybody has their stuff in, and you should be good to go. One of the things we talked about there as a head coach, you need the sport-specific training. Julie is working with Tracy Lee and Chris Militello in order to finalize the in-person and online versions of that. Chris Militello will be looking to host a Zoom coaches training for the head coaches and anybody else that wants to take the course as well. And then Tracy Lee has again offered, as she has in the past, to do in-person trainings for anybody who needs those trainings as well by request. So typically there have been some coaches who have found great value in that, to have that one-on-one instruction, if you will, and training by Tracy. But that's based on her availability and your availability as a coach. But you can send those requests to Julie, and you'll see her information in a little bit later. So here's the slide about the deadlines. Again, one of the things I will stress here is the deadlines that I'm going to mention, and the dates are the dates and deadlines that everything needs to be into the state office. With that being said, typically your area leadership will need a week or two in advance of the dates that you see here to make sure they can go through everything, validate everything, double check it, then submit that to the state office. So work with the area leadership to see what their deadlines are in order to meet the deadlines you see on this slide. So the first deadline is August 29th. That's the training registration deadline. What is a training registration deadline? That's when anybody from your program who's helping out, competing, coaching, whatever in the sport of cycling, everything has to be in place with all their certifications, paperwork, and into the system. Those who are in the system by that date are eligible to move on to the state championships. If someone does join your program, say they're moving from another state, they've missed this deadline, but they love the sport of cycling and want to get involved and go through training and practices and meet other cyclists in your program, that's fine, provided all their information is in place and certifications, etc. They just won't be eligible to move on to the state championship. So I want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Once we get all those things in, we do a review and double check everything. Although the area leadership has double checked it, we at the state office double check it. We know at times something slips through the cracks. So if the September 12th, once we review everything and we find something that's missing, we'll work with the area leadership to say, hey, Shelly Bagaski's missing this, as an example. Not that she would, but here's one thing we've noticed that Shelly doesn't have. We need that immediately, and the last day to get that into the state office is September 12th. Then we have our competition registration deadline. That's October 7th. What is that deadline? That's for everyone who is coming to the state championships within your program has been entered, and the competitors have their events. and qualifying times, etc., all entered into GMS. So again, work with the area leadership and make sure that you can meet their deadlines so they can meet our deadlines, and everything will be smooth, hopefully moving forward from that point. Next up, we have, I'm just looking at my notes to see when I turn it over to Julie. I think Julie's on. Here's some information in regards to the pre-competition webinar. So you can register using the link below. That is scheduled for October 10th at 6, again on Zoom. So that webinar is what we will do and talk to you guys as coaches as what to be prepared for at the state competition. That one will be strictly focused on the state championships for Fall Sports Fest and cycling. So, Julie, is this where I hand it over to you if you're on?
It's the next one, but I can do this one too. This is fun.
Okay, go for it.
So hi, those of you who don't know me, I'm Julie, the new sports director for cycling. Nice to meet you guys. I'm excited to work with y'all. We'll dive right in. So athletes can compete up to 2 events. For the time trials, we are doing individual starts, the 500-meter time trial and the 1K. And then with road races, those will be mass starts. And we're going to hold a 2K, a 5K, and a 10K, and a 15K. But with the 15K, the athlete does need to have a qualifying time of 40 minutes or faster that were either 2023 or 2024 times. Perfect. And within those, we are using athletes who are using modified cyclists, such as adult tricycles and any other modified vehicles. Those athletes may only be entered in the time trials in the 500-meter or the 1K unless they have been pre-approved as a safe cycle by a safe cycle by a cycling director. The purpose of qualifying competitions. Oh, sorry. Next slide, please, Steve. Thank you. The purpose of qualifying competitions is to prepare athletes for state level competitions and give athletes the opportunity to practice at a state level. In order to count as a qualifying competition, the qualifier must emulate state level competition. It needs to follow the rules of Special Olympics. There are safety rules that need to be followed, even as an in-house qualifier. These need to be appropriately trained judges and or officials. There needs to be medical personnel present with an EMT or higher certification. Ideally, we want the qualifier to include 3 or more areas, but some qualifiers can be in-house qualifiers as long as it meets all of the criteria that I had just listed. Completed sanction forms need to be submitted by the area director to me in 30 days in advance, please. To qualify for a state tournament, all of the training, registration, and deadlines need to be met. All of the head coaches must have completed all of the certifications by the deadline, please. Our athletes need to compete in a minimum of 2 sanctioned qualifiers, one being a multi-qualifier, and the other qualifier can be an in-house qualifier, meaning that one singular county can hold them, and with a multi-area qualifier, it would be 3 or more areas being in those qualifiers. But the more qualifiers that you can have your athletes in is honestly the better, because we want them to get more of a competition-based practice and have them prepared best for the competition. So the more qualifiers they can be in, please, the better it'll work out for our athletes. The second sanctioned qualifier can be an in-house qualifier, as I had mentioned. This can be administered in a place of practice session as long as it meets all of the requirements as a qualifier, as I had mentioned before. Each athlete must participate in events that they are intended to compete in at Fall Sports Fest. So say you're holding a qualifier, if they're in the 1K and the 5K, they need to be in their qualifier as the 1K and the 5K. What else on that slide?
Yeah, one of the things here is similar. We have other events such as long distance running, where there are some mainstream events that can be counted as sanctioned qualifiers, such as the Baltimore Fun Run race, which is a 5K and things of that nature. So if there are any events in your area that are cycling events that consist of the distances or longer that you intend your athletes to compete in, contact Julie and we'll take a look at it and see if that's something that we would approve as a sanctioned qualifier. So there's some other options out there. And again, as Julie stated, the more experience the athletes and competitors have, the better prepared they'll be to showcase all their skills and have a great experience at the state championships.
Yeah, sorry, I'm reading all this. It wasn't working on my computer, so I'm reading it off my little tiny iPad here. But as of today, Prince George's will be holding a qualifier on Sunday, September 15th at Milford Properties in Bowie. And get a hold of Gretchen. Her email is listed there. And you will be able to find this PowerPoint on our website on the coaches resource page in case you don't have it written down or anything. And Howard County will also be holding an in-house qualifier. That's to be determined. We're still working some things out with that, but they will be holding an in-house qualifier. And if anybody else has any qualifiers or anything that they want to get on the books, send me an email. We can figure it out.
Yeah, I know typically St. Mary's has one at one of the military bases and some others. So again, I just contact Julie with any events that you're looking, whether it's an in-house qualifier or a multi-county qualifier.
So these are the rules. They're basically, I mean, I'm sure you guys are tired of seeing this every year, but the Special Olympic sport rules for cycling shall govern all Special Olympic competitions. We have created the rules based upon the UCI rules for cycling. For more information on these rules, you can also see that on our coaches resource page under the cycling tab. And there's also a link here, and you can find this under our cycling tab as well.
All right, I don't see that Chris has joined us, so I will apologize in advance. I'm not a cycling expert, so I will do my best with some of these slides. But just a reminder here, most of these rules are reminding rule reminders, if you will. Think everyone knows most of these, but just a few things to reiterate or just make sure we're aware of moving into the season. So at the venues, whether it's a qualifier or whatever else, there's not permitted to be any vehicles on the course unless it's approved by the chief referee or the venue director. For state competition and stuff, there may be vehicles on the course for safety purposes. We'll notify the head coaches at the coaches meeting if we anticipate anything like that being a need and just to be aware of. As far as coaching goes, during the competitions, you can coach from the sidelines. And some of those things that you can do and is allowable as a coach during the competition is helping the athletes, giving them instructions about when to change gears, go to a lower gear, go to a higher gear, depending on their cycle. Advise the athletes, watch your speed, that kind of stuff. You're not allowed to physically pace the cyclist by running alongside of them or anything like that. But as we do, always want the athletes to give their maximum effort. So just be aware of that. We will have at the state championships, and when you guys have qualifiers, depending on your course, typically there are people out there to help give instruction as to when the turns are coming up and to stay along this side and just be assistance, if you will, on the course to keep everybody on the pathway. And then obviously, for many spectators, coaches, whatever, the big thing is just always encourage the athletes with positive, reminders and keep up the good work. You got this, keep going. You're doing a great job, those type of things. If there is any coaching that as an official, a timer, a referee, a management team member, or whatever, does see that hinders or distracts another competitor, that would be potentially unsportsmanlike conduct, and we would address those individuals. And depending on the infraction, it could be the ramifications could be dismissal from the competition or from the venue and possibly disqualification of the athlete. No one wants that. So again, if you stick to the coaching outlines that we talked about in the previous slide, you'll be fine. If you have any questions, you can always ask the day of or leading up to, whether it's Julie or Tracy or other coaches that have been in the process for a while. Radios are not allowed to be used on the course for instruction purposes or anything like that. So just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. We will have radios for our management team and other people along the course for communications from a management perspective, but nothing for the cyclists and coaches to be communicating that way during the races. The uniforms, matching uniforms are highly recommended, and you can see on this slide, this is one of our elite athletes, Sid Lee. Just is a really good look and gives the athletes the feel that they should have, that they are a true cyclist, and it allows the community and others to see that we are a serious sports organization and we look the part as well. So, but they're not required. But again, if you have any questions on uniforms, you can contact Julie, and if she doesn't have the exact answer, she'll be able to find that out for you. Helmets are needed, obviously, and they need to meet the USA cycling safety standards. And then appropriate pants or bottoms, if you will, cycling shorts, but no jeans, things like that. And typically the tighter to the body or the legs, the better for aerodynamics, and also just for the safety of not making sure nothing gets stuck in the gears or the chains or anything like that. And then the other recommended pieces are obviously socks, the cycling shoes, depending on your bike, whether it's the clip-ins or other things of that nature. Gloves are highly recommended. Eye protection, again, highly recommended. And have, one of the Camelbacks or whatever for a hydration system while they're out on the course so they can keep hydrated, especially for the longer distance races. So from an equipment perspective, again, everything needs to meet the USA cycling standards. We talked about the modified cycles. Those will be inspected by the officials. And again, let Julie know ahead of time if there is anything like that you have a question about. And she will work with Tracy and others to determine what's needed or if there's any exceptions to be made. You need to have 2 working brake systems, if you will, on the bikes. And everyone needs to have at least one hand on the handlebars at all time. None of the showboating coming across the finish line with their hands up, both hands up. You've seen the Tour de France athletes and others who have wrecked. Again, we want to make sure that everyone's safe while they're on the course. We talked about the radios. Headphones are not permitted as well. These are all for safety reasons. And again, we talked about the modified bikes and things like that. So again, if you have any questions, just let us know. Mechanical assistance. If a situation arises during a competition or anything like that, you can assist the competitors in making a part change or anything like that regarding a mechanical issue. Assistance is permitted as a coach or others to go out and help with that situation. If they are broken down or whatever and they get back up and whatever for a crash or whatever else, the cyclist can push the bike up to 10 meters and then start getting back on. If the situation happens near the finish line, you can run with the bicycle in your hands after a crash or whatever, or a flat right near the finish line or whatever, but you just can't progress down the course without the bicycle. So if there's any questions, just let us know on that. So we talked about the events. So for time trials, those are individual racing against the clock. So Julie talked a little bit about how those events go. Basically, individuals start at about a 30-second interval. So it's, Julie will go 30 seconds later, I will go 30 seconds later, and so on, so on. So that's how the time trials go as the individual starts versus the road races, which are the mass starts. So typically on the road rate or the time trials, the countdown is, hey, 15 seconds, 10 seconds. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And obviously, if there's individuals with hearing impairments, we will use a visual cue or a flag or something like that to indicate it's your time to go. Could be the dropping of a hand, the flag to indicate go now or whatever. So if you have anybody who has that situation where they're hearing impaired, let us know so that we can prepare for that at the start line. You need to start the races in a stationary position. They can be held there in place, if you will, but you can't push them at the start. So just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Some athletes can start with one or both feet on the ground to start. Others, if need be, can be held in place with both feet on the pedals. Again, just let the starters know at the head coaches meeting if there's any situations, or prior to that, to be helpful and make the event go smoothly. We talked about the use of modified bicycles and what's needed there. Keep us in the loop. And again, we talked about at least one hand on the handlebars, preferably both hands on the handlebars throughout the entire race. We talk about the road races again. That's a mass start, and there's no times recorded necessarily for the road race finals with the mass starts, depending on the lead racer, etc. The awards and places are based on the lead lap, if you will, and then others will be taken off the course as need be. So certain riders may not finish the entire race on the road races, depending on the finish. And then for that, again, it's either a starter's pistol or a whistle for the start of the mass races for the road races. Again, and if you have anybody who has a hearing impairment, let us know so that we can be right beside them and indicate the start of the race with a visual cue for that. So we talked about the finish. It's the placing in the order of crossing the finish line. If the course is longer than 2.5 kilometers, there may be more than one division on the course at a time. So we'll talk about that when we get up closer to the pre-competition webinar leading into the state championships. We will look to have some warm-ups. Always a good idea, regardless of whatever sport you're in, to have some warm-ups going into, so you're not cold, if you will, right at the start line. Get your body going, get the blood pumping, get prepared to get in the right mindset to showcase the skills on the course. And again, at the finish line, that's when the front of the tire hits it, and we will have the timing chips that we've had in the past. So when that goes across the reader, if you will, at the finish line, that will indicate the time for the individuals. Here's just another note, as we indicated at the beginning, very important information. That's why we put it in here twice. That the state championship has been moved at this time to October 20th. Again, that's the Sunday of the Fall Sports Fest weekend. And again, this is the anticipated venue. As I said, we're pretty much nailed down. Just a few little final details we need to get done, but want to make sure that people know that it's the same as last year, primarily at Melford Properties. It'll be a 2K loop. We'll still look at where there may be some little adaptations to last year's course. But if you remember last year, the finish line was kind of on a downhill component, if you will, and just be prepared for that. Mike, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just wanted to add that for here, because I know that there were some challenges at the competition last year. We are, one of the things, shifting to a Sunday that helps with that. In terms of reducing the amount of traffic that's there. It also enables us to have more volunteers and more staff and GMT members there than we would otherwise be able to. So we're confident that we can address pretty much any and all of the challenges that we had last year from the outset. I know some resolutions were implemented as the day went on, but we're confident we can take care of that from the outset. So didn't want folks to be concerned on that.
Great. Yeah, good point. I thank you for bringing that up, Mike. With that course at the state championships, one of the things similar to last year is the 500 meter race and the 1K will differ a little bit. So with that being said, we're again requesting that when you're getting all of your people ready to go, your sport volunteers, your assistant coaches, and getting the training sessions all set up, that you keep that in mind, that you'll need a couple extra hands, if you will, at the state championship to bring the bikes back and forth from the starting lines for the 500 and the 1K. And as Tracy mentioned last year, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at the state championships last year, but to bring bikes for those personnel to help the athletes get to and from their starting lines for those two races. This is kind of the location of the state championships, a little bit east, if you will, of Washington, D.C., in the middle there around the Beltway, and the Melford Boulevard in this general area, just to give you a general idea of where that is. Then we have a lot of other additional resources, as we've mentioned many times throughout the webinar. Our coach's resource page will be updated continuously throughout the season. It has our resources for a lot of different things, the rules, a lot of other, it'll have the slide deck, etc., many other information, many other pieces of information as well. If you do see something, or if you're looking for something that's not on the coach's resource page, generally speaking, or within the cycling portion, that you are looking for and the area leadership can't help and you can't find it anywhere, let Julie know. If that's something that, whether we made an oops and didn't post it, or if it's something that we haven't thought of that we think would benefit others, we're more than happy to talk with you about that and maybe do something and continue to make the website more user-friendly and more information available to others. So the other thing I don't think I mentioned earlier is the coach's resource page on the website is ideally designed for coaches, but it is open to general public, athletes, family members, your regular general volunteers with your program. Anybody can go to the coach's resource page. No passwords are needed or anything like that. So feel free to share the coach's resource page with members of your team and your delegation. So again, we Julie introduced herself earlier. She is your main point of contact for cycling, and she can work with the management team, Tracy, Chris Militello, Jim Russell, Adam Hayes, many other members of the management team for the sport of cycling, and work collectively together to provide you the best information possible. The two links down here, we talked about the coach's resource page. There's the main link. And then the link below that, the cycling CRP or coach's resource portion page, takes you directly to the cycling section of the coach's resource page. So with that, I have not been monitoring the chat as I've been speaking most of the time. I don't know if Mike or Julie, if you've seen any questions come in.
No questions have come in, and I don't see any hands raised either. You've just been so thorough and informative, you and Julie, that people are wowed by all of your information.
I doubt that's the case, but we will give a little bit more time here. If you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat while we're looking to see if any questions come in. Here at the tail end of the slides, which will also be portion that's posted on the website, is just, again, additional resources. A lot of stuff here we're not going to go through, but know that it's there for your use and available to you. Some of the things in here are one of the things we have is the code of conduct. A reminder to review that with your athletes and other members of your team. These are just portions of the codes of conduct that you see on these slides. You can go to our resource page, coach's resource page. Those have the full codes of conduct for coaches, athletes, unified teammates, family members, volunteers, etc. Just make sure everyone's aware of that. As a coach, one of the things you should always have with you at practice and training sessions is the athlete medical forms in case of an emergency situation. You have that at your fingertips to share with any emergency personnel who need to address a situation. Make sure you have that with you. The other thing that I will say that we highly recommend you have with you as well is what we call our incident or accident report form. Your area leadership have these available. We also have this on our coach's resource page. This is a form that will take down the information regarding an injury or an emergency transport or anything of that nature, and it takes down the situation where it happened, all of the major details. And then this is used for insurance purposes. It's also able to be used for any damage of property, of things of that nature. So it's initially intended for reporting injury, but it can also be used for any damage of property at a practice facility that you're utilizing or anything like that. So just want to make sure that you have this, a couple forms or a couple copies of this, as well as the athlete medicals. Mike?
Yeah. So yeah, we have a couple questions. One, can we get the link to this webinar so you can refer back to it? So I believe probably tomorrow, Julie will be sending out the link to the recording as well as the slides. They'll be posted on the cycling coach resource page And I'm sure Julie will include that link in that communication to you. Is there any cost for any of the training classes? For coaching Special Olympics athletes, which is the core for coaches training, that is free. There's an online version of that that you can take care of. For the work with either Tracy or Chris, either as an online session or not, there is no cost for that. In terms of any other courses that someone might identify as a possible source, we're open to suggestions. There may or may not be a cost associated with that, but the specific courses that were covered tonight or mentioned tonight, there is no cost. And then what exactly is the Melford property? That's a business park. It's under development. Not sure how many more years we might be able to utilize it, but there is a loop. It's roughly 2-kilometer loop that goes around kind of the central portion is housing that's being developed. And then around the periphery, there's one hotel now. They're looking to ultimately have 2 hotels, but there's also other businesses around the outside. The Census Bureau, actually, I don't know whether it's their main building or a satellite of them, but the Census Bureau is there and several other ones. So were you able to utilize the inner portion of the loop, close that down to traffic? And then there's lots of parking and stuff. We would utilize one of the parking locations or parking lots to set up stuff. I do need to say, for those of you who were there last year, some of the spaces that we utilize will likely need to be shifted because some of the retail properties that are there have become gone online or are active. So we're still assessing all that. But again, on a Sunday, most things are closed and such. But it's a nice area. My guess is it is nowhere near there right now, but their website is saying ultimately having 1,700 housing units there, which when it gets close to that probably will be a point where us being able to control traffic in a reasonable way may be a little more challenging. But right now it's not anywhere near that level and such, and more power to them as their businesses grow. So hopefully that answers your question, but it's a nice loop. I would recommend anybody who's available to go to the competition that Prince George's County is hosting on September 15th. Please do so. It is the same location. Can't guarantee that they're going to have everything set up exactly the same, but it will likely be very close to it, either because they'll follow our lead or we'll follow their lead, quite honestly. So the only thing they wouldn't have necessarily would be lunch distribution and awards, and we would just work with that. So, but yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Amy. But that appears to be it in terms of questions.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And again, thank you all for joining us this evening. We hope you found the information valuable. And again, like we said several times, this information will be available to you through Julie's communication and our coaches resource page to share with other members. If they want to listen to the recording, that's fine. They'll look through the slides. You can share all the information with all of your support personnel for your programs. We also thank you for everything you have done throughout the year for Special Olympics Maryland and for your local programs as well. We appreciate you as a coach, the dedication. Without you and your support for the athletes and unified teammates and others, there is no Special Olympics. So without you, we recognize that the competitions don't happen. So thank you for your dedication to the athletes. We know many of you wear multiple hats, whether it's area directors, fundraising for your area, you're a family member, et cetera, et cetera. We thank you for all of your support on behalf of Special Olympics Maryland and our president and CEO, Jim Schmutz. Thank you for your continued support of Special Olympics and your local programs. Collectively, it's our job to provide the best experience for the athletes in a sports environment and other events as well. But specifically, as we talk about here, collectively, all of us together, our management team, you as coaches, the area leadership, we're all in this together. So we're here to support you. Let us know if you have any questions. Your first contact should be your area leadership or Julie, and we'll work together to answer questions. So with that, thank you so much. Have a great evening and good luck in your cycling season.
Thank you.